The night I stood up, and everything changed. Eleliana treated it like a mission. She got dressed early that morning, fixed her hair twice in front of the bathroom mirror, and announced with quiet certainty, "I'm going to record it for memories." She said it the way someone says something they've had to remind themselves is still possible, like good memories were rare things, precious and fleeting, and you had to catch them while they were still breathing. She already understood at 12 years old that in our family, beautiful moments don't just happen. You have to fight to preserve them. The second we walked into that anniversary party, I knew exactly what kind of night it was going to be. My sister Daniella's daughter, Sophia, was already surrounded by a crowd of relatives snapping photos like she was a celebrity at a red carpet event. Daniella and her husband Brandon stood behind her like proud managers at a talent showcase, beaming with the kind of satisfaction that comes not just from your own child's success, but from the contrast it creates with everyone else. Eleliana held her phone up anyway, determined. Hope, in her, was always stubborn. We hadn't even found our seats before my dad made his first little jab. He passed us in the entryway, glanced at Eleliana's phone, and said with a smirk, "Careful, sweetheart. Try to keep up." Eleliana laughed politely. The kind of laugh children learn when they're trying to make adults comfortable at their own expense. Then my mom swooped in, kissed Eleliana's cheek, and said warmly, "There's my little." She paused, looked Eleliana up and down as if taking inventory, and finished with, "Helper." Not granddaughter, not sweetheart, helper. Eleliana's smile twitched, but it held. She was practiced at holding it. Dinner began and the room grew loud with laughter, clinking glasses, and the sounds of a family performing happiness for an audience. Phones went up everywhere. A videographer circled the room like a shark with a professional camera. Then the slideshow began, 20 photographs of Sophia. Awards, stage performances, center stage smiles, and buried somewhere in the middle, a single photo of Eleliana caught mid-sneeze. Eleliana saw it. I saw her see it. She didn't say a word. She just lowered her phone slightly, as if adjusting the angle, as if she could somehow fix what was happening by repositioning herself in it. Then my dad took the microphone. He gave the full speech, 40 years of marriage, the legacy of the family, gratitude that went on just long enough to feel like a performance. Then he smiled the smile of a man who believed he was being generous. "We're also celebrating the future of this family," he announced. Daniella's hand landed on Sophia's shoulder. Sophia smiled like she had rehearsed it, which perhaps she had. "Sophia will inherit the house," my dad said, loud and clear into the microphone. Applause. My mom stepped in seamlessly, taking the microphone like she'd been waiting in the wings for her cue. Her smile was bright, polished, camera-ready. "And the family trust," she said, nodding toward Sophia. $280,000. That goes to Sophia, too, all of it." She paused for emphasis. "Eleliana is not included." More applause. People actually cheered, as if inheritance were a talent competition and the judges had just announced the winner. Eleliana's phone stayed raised for a second longer than it should have, as if she were waiting for someone to say her name, to add her, to include her. No one did. As my parents stepped away from the microphone, my dad leaned toward a guest at the front table and chuckled, just loudly enough for the words to carry across the room. "You know how it is. One's the genius and the other one's the dumb one." Eleliana's phone dropped so fast the camera caught nothing but tablecloth. Not slowly, not politely. Her body responded before her brain could pretend she hadn't heard. The room laughed, not everyone, but enough. The kind of laughter people produce when they're relieved that the cruelty isn't aimed at them. Eleliana went perfectly still. Like if she didn't move, it would hurt less. Like she could disappear and make everything easier for everyone around her. I didn't cry. I got up. Before I tell you what happened next, I need to explain something important. This wasn't a one-off moment of carelessness. My parents didn't wake up that morning and decide to be cruel for sport. They had been doing this for decades. They had simply grown more comfortable doing it to a child once they realized that a child doesn't have the power to fight back. In my family, there has always been a scoreboard. Daniella at the top. Me somewhere near the bottom, barely on the list at all. I was 15, a Sunday dinner. My dad asked Daniela about school and she rattled off her grades like she was reading a receipt, each number more impressive than the last. My mom beamed. That's my girl. Then my dad turned to me. And Maya, he said, how's everything? Not school, not my grades, not my friendships or my interests. Just everything, as if my entire existence was too general to warrant a specific question. As if I was a vague concern rather than a person. I'm fine, I said. He leaned back and smiled like he was offering me something kind. Just try not to fall behind. Daniela's going places. Everyone laughed. Not mean laughter, though. We were a family. This was just normal. I laughed too because I had already learned the unspoken rule. If I react, I'm making a scene. If I stay quiet, I'm being mature. So I became very, very good at being mature. I swallowed it. I smiled. I disappeared a little more each time. I got pregnant young. Aleliana's father left the way some men do when they don't want to be the villain in their own story. Quietly, without drama, just slowly fatting until one day he simply wasn't there. So it was me. I worked. I raised Aleliana. I learned to stretch time and money and patience further than I ever imagined possible. I learned to sign school forms with one hand while stirring pasta with the other. I became the kind of mother who can fit a grocery run and a parent-teacher conference into the same hour and still remember to pack snacks. I built something real, even if it was never neat, never perfect, never the version of life my family approved of. My family didn't see competence. They saw a cautionary tale. The comments were gentle at first and grew sharper over the years. Well, if you'd waited, and kids need two parents, and that's why she's behind. And it's just different when you have structure. And Daniela would sit across from me with Brandon and Sophia, nodding along like she understood empathy, while benefiting from every single comparison they drew between us. Then Aleliana started struggling with reading. Not she hates homework struggling. Real struggling, the kind that makes a child's confidence shrink a little more with every passing day. She would stare at pages like the words were physically shifting on her. She'd lose her place, then become angry at herself as if her difficulty were a moral failure rather than a neurological difference. She'd read a word correctly once and stumble over the same word minutes later, and her face would crumple with a frustration too heavy for any child to carry alone. One night, she slammed her book shut and whispered, "Why can't my brain just work?" That sentence stays with you. It follows you into every quiet moment. So I got her evaluated. The result was dyslexia, not rare, not shameful, not a death sentence. Just a different brain navigating a world that was built for a different kind of mind. Aleliana was sharp and creative and funny. She remembered details from conversations I'd had 3 weeks earlier that I'd forgotten within minutes. She connected patterns in ways that made adults pause. She was brilliant in ways that didn't fit neatly into my parents' definition of the word. My parents didn't respond to her diagnosis with curiosity or compassion. They responded with judgment dressed up as concern. "Oh," my mom would say, tilting her head. "That's hard." Last year at a holiday gathering, Aleliana tried to read a card out loud, slowly, carefully, because she was genuinely trying. Someone in the room laughed. "Honey, take your time. We'll all be old by the time you finish." A few others chuckled. Then Sophia snatched the card with a confident "I can do it," and read it flawlessly while the room applauded like she had rescued everyone from a burning building. I looked at my parents, waiting, hoping that maybe this time, they would say something. My mom smiled and said, "See, that's what confidence looks like." Aleliana didn't cry until we were in the car. Halfway home, she asked quietly, "Mom, am I stupid?" I pulled over so fast the seatbelt locked. I turned to face her fully and said, "No. You are not stupid, you are different, and different isn't bad." That was the moment something shifted inside me. It's one thing to absorb cruelty when it's aimed at you. I had years of practice swallowing it down. But it is an entirely different thing to watch it land on your child and be expected to call it love. Grandma Alina saw it. She always saw more than anyone wanted her to. She was my mother's mother, but she didn't move through the world the way my mother did. She didn't perform kindness, she was simply kind. There is a profound difference between those two things, even if it's invisible to people who have never experienced both. In the months before she died, I visited her more often. Eleliana loved her because Grandma Alina didn't speak to her like she was fragile or broken or something to be managed. She talked to her like she was a person. One afternoon, Eleliana was trying to read one of Grandma's handwritten recipe cards. She stumbled over a word, and her face tightened immediately, bracing for disappointment the way she had learned to brace for it. Grandma covered the card with her hand and said simply, "Pause." Eleliana looked up, surprised. "Do you know what smart people do?" Grandma asked. Eleliana shrugged carefully. "They ask for what they need," Grandma said, "and they don't apologize for it." Then she read the card alongside Eleliana, slowly, calmly, without mockery, without comparison, without a single sigh of impatience. When Eleliana left the room, Grandma turned to me and said, "They're doing it again." I didn't ask what she meant. I already knew. "They did it to you," she said quietly, "and now they're doing it to her." I tried to laugh it off the way I always do when I don't want to cry. Grandma didn't laugh. She leaned forward, her eyes sharp and serious. "Promise me something." "What?" "If they ever humiliate that girl publicly, if they try to cut her out like she doesn't matter, you don't sit there and take it." I blinked at her. "Promise me." I promised. A week later, I visited Grandma again. She looked tired, but her eyes were as clear and deliberate as ever. She gestured to a stack of documents on her side table. I won't pretend I immediately understood what they were. My family's version of bonding had never included explaining paperwork. But Grandma tapped the stack and said quietly, "I'm putting protections in place." "For what?" I asked. "For your daughter," she said, "and for you." Then she added, almost as an afterthought, "Because your mother likes to pretend she doesn't know what's happening, and your father likes to pretend cruelty is honesty." I swallowed hard. "They'll be furious." Grandma's mouth curved slightly. "Let them." 8 months ago, Grandma died. My family grieved loudly, posted tributes online, and talked at length about how close they all had been with her, which was always a fascinating thing to hear from people who regularly forgot my daughter's birthday while keeping meticulous track of Sophia's award schedule. A few weeks after the funeral, there was a knock at my door in the evening. Eleliana was in the living room watching cartoons. I opened the door to find a man in a coat holding a leather folder. "Miss Maya Friedman," he began. "Yes." "I'm Mr. Caldwell," he said. "I represented your grandmother." My stomach dropped. My first instinct was to brace for debt, or a mistake, or some complicated adult problem that was about to become my problem, because that was usually how life worked. Mr. Caldwell's eyes briefly moved past me toward the living room, where Eleliana laughed at something on screen. He lowered his voice. "May I come in for a moment?" I let him in. He didn't sit right away. He stood at my kitchen counter like a man who understood that walking into someone's home with paperwork is an intrusion, even when it's a necessary one. He opened the folder and slid a sealed packet across to me. "Your grandmother left this for you," he said, "and she was specific about why." I stared at the packet. It looked official, the kind of document people assume only wealthy families ever encounter. "What is it?" I asked. "A recent amendment," he said, "signed shortly before your grandmother passed." My throat went dry. Why would she? "Because she was aware of what was happening," he said simply. We both understood. No further explanation was needed. Mr. Caldwell tapped the packet gently. "Your grandmother's trust owns the deed to the house and holds the family funds. Your parents benefit from that trust, but they don't control it the way they like to behave as though they do." That sentence settled something in me, a piece of a puzzle I had never been able to properly name. My parents had always spoken about the house as though it were a crown they personally owned, something they could hand off to whomever they chose at a dinner party with a microphone. "This amendment," Mr. Caldwell continued, "only matters if they ever try to cut your daughter out in a way that cannot be denied, something documented. An email, a written statement, a recorded announcement. I stared at him. Why that specific kind of trigger? Something in his expression softened, though he didn't quite smile. Because your parents are careful people, he said. They say things just softly enough to rewrite them later. Your grandmother didn't want this to become a situation of he said, she said. He pushed the packet toward me. You're not meant to threaten them with this. You don't wave it around, you keep it safe. And if they do it? I asked. His voice dropped slightly. Then the trust does exactly what your grandmother designed it to do. He didn't explain every detail. He gave me the instructions and the tool. Then he left. I stood in my kitchen holding that packet like it was both a shield and a grenade. I didn't want to use it. I genuinely did not want to be the kind of person who carries legal documents to a family dinner. But when the anniversary invitation arrived with "Celebrating Our Legacy," printed in glittering script, my stomach did that slow, familiar sinking. So I put the folder in my bag, just in case. And then we walked into that room full of cameras and champagne and pride, and my parents said it out loud, into a microphone, in front of everyone. When I stood up at that dinner, I didn't feel brave. I felt steady, like my body had quietly decided that we weren't doing fear tonight. My parents were mid-applause, mid-performance. Daniela was smiling like a statue. Sophia looked simultaneously thrilled and overwhelmed in the way children do when adults turn them into trophies. Eleliana was staring at the tablecloth like it had become the safest place to rest her eyes. I made myself speak before my brain could talk me out of it. I smiled because the smile matters. A smile is disarming. A smile is also a warning, wrapped carefully in politeness. And I said, loud enough for every phone and microphone in the room to capture it clearly, my daughter was named a beneficiary. The room didn't stop all at once. It was more like a wave reaching a shoreline. A few hands clapping died in midair. A laugh got stuck somewhere in the back of someone's throat. The videographer swung toward me instinctively, as if his reflexes recognized news when they heard it. My dad blinked slowly. My mom's hand tightened around her champagne flute. I didn't give them time to build momentum. Of Grandma Alina's trust, I added, because I was absolutely not going to let this dissolve into a vague and deniable argument. The trust that owns the house. The trust that holds the $280,000. Silence. Not polite silence. The kind where people are holding their breath because they can sense something is about to break. My dad stepped forward as though he could physically push my words back into my mouth. Maya, he said, his voice low and controlled. Sit down. Not what do you mean? Not is Eleliana okay? Just control. Just the instinct to silence. My mom recovered quickly, her smile returning in an instant. Sweetheart, she said, voice honeyed, you must be confused. Daniela stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly across the floor. Brandon's hand shot to her elbow like a publicist managing a crisis. Sophia looked around with wide eyes, visibly confused, because children always sense when adults are lying, even when they can't identify what the lie is. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder. I didn't open it. I didn't read a single paragraph aloud. I simply held it up long enough for the people nearest to me to see the heading and the signature at the bottom. Grandma Lena's name. My mom made a small, sharp sound, like she'd been quietly struck. My dad's face turned an unhealthy shade of gray. That's not, Daniela started. This is inappropriate, Brandon cut in loudly, stepping forward. I almost laughed, because yes, Brandon, it absolutely is inappropriate. So is publicly erasing a child from a family legacy with a microphone. But by all means, let's discuss manners now. Where did you get that? My dad demanded, his voice rising. From Grandma's attorney, I said calmly, after the funeral. My dad shook his head. That's impossible, we're the trustees. You were, I said. And I watched that single word land. My mom's practiced smile finally wobbled. Maya, we were speaking generally. We never said Eleliana gets nothing. I nodded toward the sea of raised phones around us. Do you want to tell all those cameras you didn't say it? Then I turned and looked at Aleliana. Her phone was still on the table, angled wrong now, no longer recording. She held it against her chest like a shield. Her eyes were huge and wet, but refusing, absolutely refusing, to spill. I was not going to let this become another memory. She had to survive. This isn't about interpretation, I said. You said it out loud. My dad's hand twitched toward the folder. Without thinking, I stepped back, not dramatically, not out of fear, but the way you step back when someone reaches too close to something you're protecting. Daniela started talking rapidly, the way people do when they hope speed can outrun reality. You're doing this because you're jealous. You've always been. No, I cut in. I'm doing this because you called my daughter the dumb one in front of a room full of cameras and then announced she gets nothing. The room shifted. People looked at one another. Someone's face tightened with visible discomfort because even people who had laughed earlier don't enjoy being reminded that they laughed. There is a difference between participating in cruelty in the moment and having it reflected back at you clearly. We never, my mom started. You did, I said, and tonight is recorded. That's exactly why Grandma wrote it the way she did. My dad's jaw worked like he was trying to chew through something bitter. What does it even mean? Someone at a nearby table whispered. I kept my answer short, human, and clear. It means, I said, you don't get to cut Aleliana out and keep living off Grandma's trust like it's your personal trophy shelf. My dad leaned forward, his voice low with barely contained fury. You are humiliating us. I tilted my head slightly. Yes, I said quietly. Funny how it only counts as humiliation when it happens to you. My mom's eyes flashed. You're ruining our anniversary. I glanced at Aleliana, then back at them. You ruined a 12-year-old, I said. I'm just refusing to participate. I didn't stay to argue the details. I didn't stay to be baited. I didn't stay because my daughter was still in that room, and the point was never to win a fight in front of her. I turned to Aleliana, held out my hand, and said simply, Let's go home. She stood so quickly her chair nearly tipped. As we walked toward the exit, my dad called after me, his voice sharp and performative, pitched for every phone in the room. This isn't over. We'll contest it. I didn't turn around. I said over my shoulder, Good luck saying you never said it when you said it into a microphone. And we walked out. We hadn't even made it to the parking lot before my phone began vibrating like it had been possessed. My dad, my mom, Daniela, Brandon, a relative saved in my phone as Aunt Renee, because yes, every story like this has at least one enthusiastic enabler. In the car, Aleliana sat stiff and braced beside me, staring out the window. Then she whispered, Am I in trouble? That question hit me harder than anything my parents had said all evening. No, I said immediately. You are not in trouble. You did absolutely nothing wrong. She nodded, still tense. Then, after a moment, did I ruin their night? I let out a short, dry, exhausted laugh. Honey, they ruined their own night. They've been practicing for years. That made her mouth twitch, almost a smile, then careful, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to have it yet. When we got home, I made hot chocolate like it was a protective spell. Aleliana sat at the counter stirring it slowly, staring into the mug, and finally asked, What does beneficiary mean? It means, I said, Grandma wanted you protected. She was quiet for a moment. Because I'm dumb. My chest tightened. I crouched down so we were exactly eye level. You are not dumb, I said. You are 12. You are funny and stubborn and curious. You have dyslexia, which means reading is harder for your brain. That doesn't make you less. It makes you someone who has to work differently, and the things you're capable of because of how your brain works are things other people can't do at all. She swallowed. I don't want them to hate me. I know, I said softly, and I hated that I understood exactly how that felt. After Aleliana fell asleep that night, I sat at my kitchen table, opened my laptop, pulled up the video clip from the anniversary dinner, and emailed it to Mr. Caldwell. No speech, no explanation, just the video. At 6:12 in the morning, my inbox pinged. Subject line, confirmation of notice receipt, Alina Family Trust. That is the kind of email that makes your stomach drop even when you're the one who asked for it. I stared at it for a moment, then opened it. Mr. Caldwell's message was short, clean, and professional. He confirmed receipt of the video. My dad's toast. My mom's smile. The words "that goes to Sophia," too, floating in a room full of applause and raised phones. Then one sentence that made my hands begin to shake. The triggering event occurred on record. The administrative steps will begin today. Administrative steps. Two words that sound remarkably mundane until they are pointed directly at someone like a loaded weapon. At 7:03 a.m., my phone rang. My father. I didn't answer. He called again, and again, then a voicemail. His voice was calm at first, which, in my experience, was always when he was most dangerous. "Maya," he said, "I need you to stop whatever you think you're doing. This is a misunderstanding." Then the calm collapsed. "If you don't fix this, you will regret it." I saved the voicemail, not out of pettiness, because I am a single mother, and single mothers do not survive without receipts. At 8:20 a.m., Daniela sent a long text message that began, "I can't believe you would do this to Mom and Dad." I stared at it and felt something in my mind go very quiet. Not numb, just done. Finished with the performance of caring what she thought about what I had done. I typed back one sentence, "You watch them do it to my child." Then I put my phone face down on the table. Because I have learned, through years of trying, that arguing with people who are uninterested in truth is like attempting to teach algebra to a cat. It simply isn't going to happen, and the effort will leave you scratched. That same afternoon, Aleliana's school called. "Hi," the receptionist said, cheerful and completely unaware she was delivering a grenade. "We just wanted to confirm. Aleliana's grandmother and grandfather are here to pick her up." My lungs went cold. "What?" "They said it's an emergency." Of course they were listed. Years ago, when I still believed in the version of family I had been taught to want, I put them on her emergency contact list. I hadn't updated it, because my life runs on a rotating list of things I haven't gotten to yet. "Do not release her," I said, my voice sharp enough to cut through the cheerfulness. "I'm on my way." I left work immediately. I drove like my heartbeat was doing the steering. When I arrived at the school office, my mom was already there, that bright, practiced smile deployed for the benefit of strangers, the one she uses to make people think she is a kind and gentle woman. My dad stood beside her, rigid, already irritated that the world had not simply bent to accommodate him. Aleliana hadn't been brought down yet. Small mercy. My mom turned when she saw me and said, almost sweetly, "Maya, we just wanted to talk to her." My dad cut in. "We're her grandparents." I walked directly to the reception counter. "Remove them from her file," I said clearly. "Right now." My mom's smile faltered. "Maya, don't do this." "You don't get to use the word family after last night," I said. "You just tried to corner my child at school." My dad stepped closer, his voice dropping to that controlled, quiet register he uses when he wants to sound reasonable. "We can handle this privately." "You had your chance," I said. "You chose a microphone." The receptionist looked deeply committed to becoming invisible behind the office printer. My mom's voice trembled with the effort of holding herself together. "We weren't going to hurt her." I looked at her steadily. "You already did." Then I turned to my father. "Leave." He puffed up. "Excuse me." "Leave," I repeated, calm and level. "Or I'll ask the school to call security." My dad's face reddened with the particular shock of a man who has never been told no in public. He opened his mouth. Then he looked around at the parents moving through the office, at the receptionist watching, at the quiet, witnessing world around him. He swallowed his rage. "Fine," he snapped. "We'll handle this another way." And they walked out. When Aleliana came down a minute later, she took one look at my face and froze. "What happened?" she whispered. I knelt in front of her and smoothed her hair back gently. My hands were still shaking. I kept my voice completely steady. I changed your school pickup list. From now on, it's only me. She nodded slowly. Were they? They wanted to talk, I said. They don't get to surprise you anymore. She swallowed, then very quietly, I'm sorry. My chest cracked open. No, I said immediately. No, you do not apologize for adults making their own choices. That is not yours to carry. She leaned into me then, like she had been holding herself upright through sheer stubbornness and had finally run out. I held her in the middle of that school office and didn't care for one single second who was watching. Let them record that, I thought. Let them record this, too. 2 weeks later, a thick envelope arrived by certified mail. Not to me, to my parents. I know because Aunt Renee texted me a photograph of it like it was breaking news. She couldn't resist being first to deliver. There it was, a bright green official sticker, signatures, stamps, and printed across the top in bold, notice of trustee removal, Elena Family Trust. Below it, a second line, notice of termination of occupancy benefit, which is the legal world's elegant way of saying, you don't get to live there anymore. My phone rang 10 minutes later. My mom, I answered. Her voice was already in full collapse, shaking, disbelieving, careening between anger and panic. Maya, this is insane. This can't be happening. In the background, I could hear my father yelling. Not his controlled, measured anger. Real panic, the kind that comes when the ground disappears. I stayed quiet and let her exhaust herself. We didn't mean it, she finally said. We didn't mean Aleliana gets nothing. We were celebrating. You were performing, I said calmly. Maya, please, she begged. Call Mr. Caldwell, tell him to stop this. I exhaled slowly. I can't, I said, and even if I could, I wouldn't. Her breath hitched. You're punishing us. No, I said, I'm protecting her. My dad's voice cut through from the background, loud enough to be picked up clearly by the phone. She planned this. She's always been bitter. Stop, my mom hissed at him, like she was trying to put out a fire with a paper towel. Then she came back, her voice trembling and sharp with desperation. We're going to contest it. You can try, I said. We'll say you manipulated her, she snapped. We'll say Grandma wasn't well when she signed it. I felt my pulse rise, but my voice stayed completely flat. Then you should probably stop talking right now, I said, because you're still on speaker and I'm still recording. Silence. Then my father screamed something in the background that sounded like a chair being knocked over. My mom's voice dropped to a whisper. You're recording me. I'm a single mom, I said. I record everything. I hung up. The official email arrived 3 days later. Subject line, Establishment of Subtrusts, Beneficiary Allocation Confirmed. I opened it with my heart sitting somewhere near my throat. It was short, clean, and without drama, just facts arranged in a row. 2 subtrusts were being established, one for Aleliana, one for Sophia, 50% each. The $280,000 would be divided equally, $140,000 into each protected account. The house, which cannot be split the way money can, would be listed for sale, and the proceeds would be divided 50-50 between the 2 subtrusts upon closing. At the bottom, occupancy benefit terminated. Vacate by 30 days from notice date. 30 days. My parents had built their entire identity around that house. It wasn't just a home. It was their stage, their evidence that they mattered, their platform for announcing legacies and pointing microphones. And now the stage lights were being switched off, one by one. I sat at my kitchen table and stared at that email until my eyes burned. Then Aleliana came into the kitchen and asked softly, Mom, are we okay? I looked at my daughter, this child who had been called the dumb one by adults who were supposed to protect her. We're okay, I said. We're safe. She nodded slowly, processing. Does that mean they'll stop? I can't control what they do, I said honestly, but I can control what they get access to. Her eyes focused. Access. I smiled a little. Yeah, access. That night, I emailed the school, updated every contact on every form, updated every permission list, every pickup authorization, everything I should have updated months earlier. Then I sent one text to my parents. One sentence. "You don't contact Liliana without me, ever." My dad replied immediately, "You can't keep her from us." I stared at the screen for a moment, then I typed back 2 words. "Watch me." The video, as it turned out, didn't just circulate. It detonated. Not because I posted it. I had a child to tuck in and a pickup list to rewrite. But family group chats don't need your help. They are basically wildfire with thumbs. Aunt Renee, the very same one who had laughed, forwarded the clip like it was a breaking news alert. Someone else added captions. Someone else zoomed in on my mother's expression at the exact moment she said, "Liliana is not included." Within 24 hours, half the family had seen it, and the other half was pretending they hadn't while forming very loud opinions about it. My parents attempted their usual damage control. It was taken out of context. It was a joke. We never said that. Mom was just emotional. Like any of those explanations could make the words disappear. But this time, the words weren't floating in the air where they could be denied or softened or reframed. They were sitting in everyone's camera roll, time-stamped, clear as day. The house sold 3 months later. It went for $1.2 million. Not a single penny went to my parents. The proceeds went directly into the 2 subtrusts, exactly as outlined 50-50. After closing costs and fees, both accounts were funded. Liliana's share, Sophia's share. My parents lost the house. They lost trustee control. They lost the lifestyle cushion that had allowed them to function as though they were untouchable. They lost the ability to dangle inheritance like a leash over the people around them. And the most extraordinary part of all of it, they lost everything because they couldn't resist humiliating a 12-year-old child into a microphone. My dad called me the day the sale finalized. His voice was calm in that unsettling way that meant he was trying to behave as though he still held leverage. "We need help," he said. Not "I'm sorry," not "I was wrong," just "we need." "You should ask Daniela," I said. Then I ended the call. My parents went straight to Daniela, as expected. They anticipated that their favorite would rescue them. Daniela did not. She protected Sophia's half of the trust with ferocious efficiency and told my parents plainly that she wasn't giving them anything. She blamed them directly for triggering the clause in the first place. Then she went right back to her life, which was, in the most unsettling way, deeply on brand. My parents had spent years teaching her that legacy is a prize and love is conditional. Daniela had simply applied that lesson back to them the moment it stopped being convenient. After that, my parents moved into a small rental across town. Not a tragic, cinematic collapse. Real life is rarely that tidy. But the kind of place where no one knows who they used to be, where there is no dining room grand enough for a legacy dinner, and where there is no stage, no spotlight, and no audience. Just 2 people who finally had to sit alone with themselves and the choices they'd made. A few years later, Liliana was 16 and reading on her own terms. Still dyslexic, still brilliant, just no longer ashamed of either. As for my parents, I went no contact. They lost access to me and they lost access to her. So did I go too far, or not far enough? I'll leave that for you to decide.